the values they will affect each other. So it is a main problem if we use several models. So my basic idea is just put several models here, and there will some structures like structures here, and it is the bottom of the plastic bag, and I will put it at the bottom of the plastic bag. And maybe I have found some steel wires to support it, so it can move.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but you get the mechanism figured out.
What?
You got the mechanism and the structure figured out.
Mechanism system is just because it takes me a long time to dealing with this kind of problem.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah,
but I think you're pretty close.
The other thing is, there is two sensors. One is motion sensor, the other is sonar. And motion sensor cannot detect objects.
Oh.
It only can detect animals. But sonar can detect all of the stuffs. So it is another conclusion that when I experiment with the sensors. Because when I want to use motion sensor to detect whether the trash have already in the plastic bag. But if it fails, I just
So
motion sensor is.
It's a PI. Wait, the ultrasonic you're talking about versus the PIR?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so like a PIR, it's a proximity IR sensor, right? And versus the Maxbotics.
So the motion sensor only have two values. It is 0 and 1.
Yeah.
It's digital, so it can.
This guy.
Yes.
Yep.
And it has different types. It will detect such long distance, like 3 or 4 meters. It can detect such long distance. So
this is what's in like every possible automatic lighting thing that sits outside of garages. Then when you somebody walks by, the light turns on, and it's based on infrared, and it just shoots an infrared, and it bounces back, and if it ran into some kind of obstruction, it means that you're there, and then it basically turns on the light. And there's basically just a bunch of electronics on the back of the sensor that transform it into digital, whether it's a switch basically, so it's whether on or off. But because of the application of this specific sensor, because of the fact that it's mostly for security purposes or garages or things like that, it has a very wide angle view, so it can see a lot of things, but it has a slight delay because you don't want your garage light to come on and off a bunch of times as the person is moving. So usually for the entire time that you're in its view, it stays on. So it's not as responsive as you would think it is. It just kind of when it sees you for as long as you're in the picture, the switch is on, and only when you leave after a few seconds it turns back off. So there's a small delay, so it's not as responsive. It's mostly just, this is useful in those kind of applications when you just want to know if somebody's there or not there and kind of how long they stay in that space versus this sensor. So you're telling me, so which sensor did you try? Which sensor did you try to have inside the bag?
Sonar sensor. This
Yeah, I don't know why this was the page I was looking for. And did this work or?
Yeah, this is one.
Just going to show this one. That's the back. I don't know why I can't see the front. So it's these different types. And this is based on ultrasound. So it still has a specific view, an angle view that you can check on the data sheet. And there's different, it tells you right here different ranges of how far it can see in centimeters. And it sends a wave, and when it bounces back, it calculates basically how far that object is from it in order to understand. It converts that into distance. So it just like sends a ray of ultrasound and then waits for it to bounce back. So they're very responsive, and they have a bunch of electronics, so all it gives you is an analog reading that you can use to derive inches away from. So this didn't work for the bags inside the bag, or?
I'm going to use two sensors, one outside and one inside.
Yeah. One to detect people, right?
And one to detect the trash.
So two of these?